Welcome to the Bleep Bulimia podcast with Tim Thomas, a man who's passionate about sleep. Hi, everyone. I am Lorianne. I am the host of Bleep Bulimia, and today I'm so excited to have Tim Thomas. And he is, I love this. He said, like, he's got so much of his life, and he says, no, just say that I am the man who's passionate about sleep. And I love that. And I'm so excited that you are here and all the way from across the world, because I'm in Canada and you are in Australia. And so thank you so much for being here tonight.
Lorianne, it's wonderful to be here, and I'm really looking forward to spending time with you and your listeners. I always do a bit of preparation before the event. Part of it I was showing you earlier. I always you can't quite see it. They're candles. I always light candles as I create this space because I do believe when two people are speaking authentically and sincerely, there's a lot of healing going on.
I love it. That is so. I think that's very special. And to my listeners who are listening on podcast versus watching us on YouTube, it's really sweet that Tim has this really cute little kangaroo.
Oh,
I
there you
just
go.
love
Yep.
him. And I was telling him that when I drive to work, and people think I'm crazy, but I've got this little cow, and it reminds me of my dad because it was the first little stuffed animal kind of that he got me was a cow, and so he's my partner when I drive to work every day. So today we are going to be talking about
Hang on, can I just
sleep.
stop there for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so before we were talking about how things we feel in our bodies. When you
Yes,
think of that cow, even if it's not in the room, where do you feel that in your body?
I feel my dad and
Yeah,
and the love that he had for me
yeah, so you feel the love for your dad, and where
yeah,
do you feel that in your body? Where in your body is that located?
all over here.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
And even when I get in the morning, I pat his little head. Like, I
Yep.
know I sound totally crazy, but he's my little partner when he's my comfort zone. Comfort zone.
I would actually say that's you creating balance.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Well,
I
that's
mean,
good. So
and,
I'm not
and
crazy.
removing any blockages.
Yeah.
It's hard to say we must remove a blockage, but then replacing it with something positive, empowering, and it lights you up. Like that's you. I don't believe in, oh, people call me crazy. No, it's just not a measured metric yet. Okay. And a lot of the stuff the spaces we work in aren't on the spreadsheet, can't be seen on the spreadsheet, you know?
True.
So if, you know, the only time I would say that would be potentially unhealthy is if, let's say, you didn't have it for some reason, and that would completely wreck your week. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like that.
yeah.
That's when it might be a bit of a dependency thing.
No, I just come in and if I'm leaving for a couple of, like if I'm taking a day off, I'll go see you in a couple of days. Like I talk
Yep.
to the stupid
Yeah.
little thing.
Nice.
But I always loved stuffed animals growing up. I still have them. I mean, I'm 62. I still have stuffed animals. I also have my three dogs and my two cats. Like it's just a part of my life. But yeah. Um, so uh, I really am intrigued. And I was telling you earlier when we were talking earlier that when I was bulimic, and so to my audience, who most of them who have been listening know I was 30 years with bulimia, and 14 years without. And I can't wait to hit 15 years. It's kind of like just one of those things. Uh, and sometimes I wonder why I ever did it, but emotionally, I do understand why I did. I can still feel that connection, maybe to my little cow that's next to me. But if he disappeared, it wouldn't bother me. Um, I'd be sad. Uh, but the point is that my bulimia did cause me a lot of sleep problems. Like would binge late at night. I would then throw up, and then I couldn't sleep, and I had so many nightmares. And believe it or not, a lot of my dreams during that time, and I know we're not talking about dream stuff, but it was interesting that they were all gray. I dream in color now, Whereas when I was bulimic, it was like black and white gray. It was interesting. And I have no idea why, but that was the case. But I also had a lot less sleep, a lot less, and a lot more disturbed sleep because I couldn't make it through the night. So please do tell us, first of all, I want you to introduce yourself, and sorry for blabbing, but this was interesting. Um, you are a veteran, you've done so many things, and what brought you to where you are here about sleep?
Okay, so became a zombie for 6 years because when I told a doctor I couldn't sleep, they threw a pharmacy at me. And I'm not completely against pills. There is a time and a place, and sometimes it's the lesser of two evils. But what no one tells you is that, sure, there might be a benefit, but there is a massive cost to taking all these pills. Nothing comes for free. There is a cost to taking these things. And there's a lot of memories I simply just don't have. And I think I lost a lot of memories because this was like a lot of pharmaceuticals for your brain. And then no one tells you how hard it is to get off these drugs.
Mhm.
So I never knew you could split a second into a minute when you're in so much pain. And then an hour seems like a day, and a day seems like a week. The withdrawal symptoms of these things. Um, I didn't know that breath work, simple breath work, could be used to change your brain chemistry. Okay, because breath work isn't meditation. Meditation is thoughts controlling thoughts. And if you've got a bit of a train wreck going on up there, it's pretty hard to control the outcome. But breath work is a chemical override. It alkalizes your body. It, like I said, changes your brain chemistry. And I didn't find this from studying. You mentioned I served. I served in the Australian Special Forces. We knew nothing about sleep or the science of sleep, but we knew if we could deny our enemy sleep in Afghanistan for 3 nights, it would mess them up better than a bullet.
Wow.
And then when I come to my country, so many people aren't enjoying the freedom and the enjoying life because their sleep is denied them. So I thought, what's the best thing I could do for people if I could choose one thing? And sleep was one of those things that just stood out to me because if you want to destroy someone, destroy their sleep. My saying now is if you care about somebody, you genuinely care about how they sleep because sleep is the soil from which everything grows. A lot of people, but just like if you go by the soil and a tree growing out of it, we're very visual creatures. We only, if we can't see it, it almost doesn't exist. And so often, if a tree is struggling to grow, if you don't have the trunk in the right shape, then people say, oh, we've got to fix the trunk. Or if you don't have the fruit in your life that you want, oh, we've got to get something to help the fruit grow. But someone who really understands trees, they go into the soil, improve the nourishment level of the soil, the unseen spaces, and then all of a sudden the trunk gets stronger. The fruit that you want in your life starts appearing. So that's where I sit. In I sit in the place that is just behind all the things that you really want, and that is having the right amount of energy in your life. Um, and it to me, I'm dyslexic. I struggle to read and write. My pattern recognition is in the top percentile, and I've observed this about me. There's two completely different types of people in this world, and they're both me. Okay, and there's the me that is got poor sleep. I'm in a bad mood. I'm cranky. I usually eat more because if you don't sleep enough, you have more ghrelin, which is a type of hormone, and you eat 2 to 3 times more than you need when you're sleep deprived. Uh, I'm reactive. I'm forget about me driving in traffic. Um, you know, and at the end of the day, I've got this accumulation of crap in my head. They call it an allostatic load, which is stress from all the different areas piling up in your head. And then one feeds the other, then I sleep worse. Now our human bodies are incredibly powerful. They can handle, all sorts of abuse. But conversely, the other form of me is the me that sleeps well. You know, I wake up, my feet hit the floor. I can invest in this vessel. I'm a whole lot nicer to others. I don't eat as much. I'm not so dependent on external sources of power because I've invested in this vessel. But the thing about sleep is it's not seen, and the 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 access to sleep, people aren't talking enough about how you can do it naturally and immediately. And then it's one thing to say this, it's another thing to give people tools when they need it, as they need it. Because people are often tired because they've already got a full plate. They're doing as much as they can. I mean, sure, you could give them a bunch of advice about doing this, but they're not going to take it on because their plate's already full. They're already tired because they've been working, really hard anyway. I hope that answers your question. I tend to tangent a bit.
Yeah.
Just pull me in if
No, no, it's okay because that's what we were talking about. So I work long hours, and it's not just the hours. I love my job. I absolutely love my job. But there's also the travel time, and then there's coming home, and then there's taking care of your animals and taking care of, I absolutely adore my mom, but I've got to make sure that her dogs are taken care of, and then I've got to make sure she's got her pills because that matters to me. But at the end of the day, you're looking at 9 o'clock and you're sitting there going, I want some more time for me. But then you get busy doing things, you get creative, or you get writing to someone, or you get to watch a movie. And next thing you know, it's like, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. You've got to be up at 6, 7 o'clock, usually seven.
yep.
But it's still, I like 8 hours sleep, but I deny myself that because I get all excited about me time. Like just which is crazy. Because me time should involve my sleep. Like, but
Well, I would say if I'm
this,
listening correctly, Lorianne, your blessing is that you can handle a lot. Okay, you're a high stimuli gal. Okay, but the curse is the world we currently live in is pretty under demanding, you know, of ourselves in the way that we're not exposed to extremes of temperature. We're all pretty safe. And there's access to entertainment at the opening of your phone, or and I've got to say this, since the industrial age, we are now exposed to artificial light. Okay, so that we are light receptive creatures. We don't have leaves that sit in the sun, but we're just the same. And now that we've got artificial light, that is a massive impact on our sleep. So one of the biggest tips I can give anybody when people say sleep tips is not actually in the evening, it's in the morning. So
oh,
when we actually wake up, when that sun breaks the horizon, there is a certain frequency of light that comes from the sun being on that horizon. And what that does, it sets off this cascade of chemical reactions in our brain. Okay, it turns off the melatonin. Melatonin helps you sleep. It turns that off. It awakens your brain. But what it also does is our body has a bunch of, you've heard of the term circadian rhythms. Okay,
no.
or we've got all these internal clocks, right?
Okay.
Which which if you've ever had the experience where you're at the end of the day, part of you's tired, but part of you's still running around, not wanting to sleep. Well,
Yeah.
looking at the sunrise, I get it, right? Looking at the sunrise, as it breaks the horizon, that frequency of light through your eyes synchronizes all your internal clocks.
Oh.
So as you go through the day, everyone's got their watch in sync. So when I was in the special forces at the end of the orders group, the guy in charge would always say, "Okay, let's sync up our watches to the second." Okay, because you can imagine in an operation, if someone's 30 seconds behind, that would have a massive impact to everyone else. And this is where having yourself set up at the beginning of the day sets you up really powerfully for the end of it, because that sequence of colors that we see, that is so important to enliven our body, get us on track, and say it's okay to get into the day, work. And then ideally, looking at that sunset, there's the morning colors in reverse. That turns on the melatonin. It tells us it's okay to go to sleep. We are more light sensitive than we'd like to admit. Okay, because every time we look at an artificial light, it boosts this stress hormone called cortisol. So even though you're tired, your cortisol is like coffee. It just numbs the fatigue. And so even if you're tired, it puts you in this state of, oh, I'm supposed to be, alive. And in many ways, I think of mobile phones and artificial lights a bit like, you ever seen those bug traps? They've got that light in them, and the bugs go towards it and they zap them. So that,
Yeah,
it's like this is how
humans are
they,
like that.
yeah, with their phones. I kid you not. And it's not killing us immediately, but it's taking
No,
years off our life. You know what I mean?
I do. Now, I have an interesting thought. Okay, so my father-in-law, ex-father-in-law, but I never divorced him, who would have been 96 on April 7th. I always remember his birthday. He was just a lovely man. He was a doctor. And he used to tell me, if you have short sleep, okay, so you do 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours, 5 hours, and then you go, yay, I've got a day off. I'm going to sleep in. I'm going to catch up. Apparently, he said you never do. And this is something that people have this, I think, misthought about. They think that they can catch up if they sleep in after, but he says you can never catch up on the sleep you've lost. So
Yeah.
I thought I'd bring that up because I
Yeah.
always thought
No, it's
that fascinating. And I do that. I go, oh yeah, I can sleep in because I've got a day off. But I go, but I know Sir Hugh told me it's not going to help me anyway. But here we
well,
go.
I, I he is correct. Sleep is not like a credit card that you can just spend and then pay off in one big lump sum. But ain't
Yeah.
nothing wrong with a sleep in. I've got distinct sleep discipline, but on one day of the week, I just throw everything out the window, and I used to call it give a F Fridays, where I just didn't get a F about anything. It's all about just
Love
being
it.
inside your own skin. But now I
Yeah.
call it a super slow Sunday,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
our minds can sometimes work quicker than our bodies. And we often think about where we need to be, and our body's not there yet. And we're so focused on that point outside of us that we've disconnected from our own body. And
Hmm.
in veterans, that shows up in the fight or flight. You know, is that a threat? Is that a threat? I'm so connected to the threat that I've disconnected from my body. And if
Oh.
I drop my, and I've got that so ingrained that people start, to me, mental health isn't so much a mental health issue, it's a physical disconnect. The more, connected I was to fight or flight, the things coming in, the more disconnected I was to my own body. So I wasn't sleeping, I'd have all sorts of stuff going on, and I was suffering. And yet people call it mental health, and I call it physical disconnect.
I like that because as a bulimic, I like where you're doing this. This is my bulimia. This is my body. I'm focused on my bulimia, on my eating, on my, which is in a sense my fight or flight type of thing because I'm using food as a how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this stress? How do I get out of like
Yeah,
because a lot of bulimics, and it's not everybody, but a lot of bulimics are overachievers. So the overachievers would be like they're at war with themselves every day. Like, I've got to do better. I got to do better. I got to go, you know, and honest to goodness, not anywhere near what you went through, but fight our fight, to prove that we're a better person or that we're and and the food is that thing that kind of connects with that disconnects us from our body really
yeah,
seriously because
yeah,
I know when I started to become more aware of my recovery that, okay, my right hand can't really function without the left hand. They work together so beautifully, they're partners. My brain has to work with my body, and my body needs sleep, and my brain needs sleep. And so, and it's so
But
strange that you've come onto this podcast because it's been in the last little while, I've been very aware of the fact that I've been trying to, yes, trying to promise myself to make sure. And I really have to do it. I don't like the shoulds. So I guess this is a good segue to you telling us how do we do that? Because
yeah,
I want I want my 8 hours sleep. I because you're definitely right. Oh my gosh, there's the gorilla and then there's the Lorian, the little like chimpanzee sweetie, like
mm, yeah, yeah. Oh,
yeah.
if you care, I mean, if you treated your body like it was someone else's, and you cared about that other person's body, how would you treat your body if it was someone else's? Like you're caring for your mother, was it? And you make sure she's,
Yeah.
getting what she needs when she needs it. Okay, we almost have to look at our own bodies like it's another person and say, well, how would I treat this body? You know, it's a funny
I
question
love
to look at
that.
yourself like that. Yeah.
No, that's actually not a funny question because in my previous podcast I just did, I spoke to when I was pregnant with I had 3 children, and during my pregnancies I was not bulimic because I was so concerned about that body inside of
Yep.
me. And then they would come out and then I would just go back to it.
Mm,
I love that. I was not treating my body like I was treating my children's body, my mother's. That's an incredible thought.
yeah,
Thank you for sharing that. Wow. That's a big one. Sorry, but really
no,
never
no, no.
thought
I
of
mean,
it
I'm
that
glad,
way.
I'm glad, I'm glad you highlighted it because, obviously, if I asked the viewers, put your hands up if what Lorianne just shared resonated, there'd be probably a lot of hands up. Okay.
Yeah.
Us humans, I've observed we do really well with an external focus in a healthy way. We wouldn't, you know, do something for ourselves necessarily. We wouldn't necessarily, but if it comes to others, we would definitely want to help
Yes.
them. Okay. But the way I frame it with people is that think of all the people in your circle, all the things you're responsible for. Now think of you in a physically and mentally, and I only go to the negative to highlight the positive, but I'm going to go to negative to start with. Think of yourself firstly, have all the people and all the things that you're responsible for, your relationships, your work, your thing, blah, 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 animals, if you've got animals. Um, and imagine the impact on them if you're in a physically and mentally weakened state. You know, your work wouldn't be as secure, your income wouldn't be as secure. Your good friends would still care for you, but their life would almost be harder because you're not really in a strengthened state. Or when I'm talking to veterans, I say, in a small person team, if someone's underperforming by 20%, but they're saying, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, that doesn't change the fact that everyone else has to pick up their work rate 5%, you know? So you're not being selfish when you look after yourself. If you boost yourself 20%, then everyone else's life gets 5% better.
Nice.
So when you're investing in yourself, no matter what that looks like, I break it down. So for me, I'm a breathwork person. So every single breath, everyone in my life is getting better, stronger, and improved. My work's getting more abundant, etc., etc. And if all I had to do was take some deep breaths to improve everything in my life, would I do it?
Yes.
All right. So when you actually contextualize your own self-care as the best thing that you can do for everything in your circle, because this is you becoming, stronger, empowered, this
Yeah.
this this creates ripples without you even saying words in the way, and it's easy to highlight in the negative. So, if a negative person walks into the room, everyone feels it, you know, and
Yes.
or someone who's on the negative spectrum of things where they could be really aggressive, and it just people pick up on that super quickly. And you don't even have to be in the same room. You know, some a-hole that has pissed you off years ago, you just a thought in your head takes from you. Okay?
Yeah.
But imagine this in the positive. Imagine if you're the person that's aligned with what you're supposed to be doing in this world. You know, there's a lot of power in alignment. Just the thought of you, you know, think of the thing that can be taken. Now try, you know, the opposite is also true. So when you're living your life the way it's supposed to be lived, then all of a sudden, when someone thinks of you, they've got more energy, more options.
Yeah. I
So
like
so
that.
this is where when we talk about self-love, man, this is one of the best ways we can love others because as we love ourselves, we're contributing. Because if we didn't love ourselves, we could be that person in the room that takes from others without even knowing it. You know that because there's no holding ground. There is no holding ground. That's the hard truth.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree with you. I used to joke around about when I was in this position as president and we had, but it was all like, um, volunteer, but you can have like 12 people in the room and they're all positive except for one. And the other 11 are like one ball of negative energy can kill up to 12 people. Like it's nuts. Like it's crazy. So I'm so with you on that one. Um, One thing that was lovely when I gave up my bulimia, that was a very big journey towards loving myself. And I do love myself. There's sometimes I don't, because you know what? I'm in relationship with myself. You don't always love the other person. Really, like as you said, there's two people, the one that gets up late, the other one that's like, and then there's also those moments. Um, but I'm very forgiving of myself when I am in those bad moments, and I do notice, and I'm acutely aware of it. Okay, you didn't sleep well last night. You're going to be in this mood. And I think that that's very important for people to be very acutely aware of your personality right now is not really who you are. You just didn't do what would have been best for you. I can't stand the should word. What would have been best for
I
you,
love how you're tight on your own language. I love it.
right? Is get more sleep. And I've
Yeah.
been seriously gauging my sleep. I've been doing the best I can to get 8 hours sleep a night, sometimes 7:40 because I wake up in the middle of the night or whatever. But I think this is really important. And I really do believe it's really important for people who are struggling with eating disorders because the more tired you are, what did you just say? The more tired you are, the more you want to eat.
Yeah, well, your hormone levels are thrown out. And you know, to me, we sense imbalances, and if we can't find that balance inside of us, we'll look outside of us. You know,
Yes.
my thing was alcohol. I drank a hell of a lot of alcohol. I couldn't speak to my then wife. I call her my then wife, not my ex-wife, because I stand for a positive future. Um, without drinking a whole lot of beer. And it wasn't until I had a chronic injury that I realized we're not actually in an age of information, Lorianne. We're in an age of marketing. Okay. First 6 pages of Google are marketers. So if you're looking for healing, balance, removing some kind of blockage, most of the information that is easily accessible are marketers. And I need to point out the difference. There's marketers and there's healers. Marketers know how to speak the language you're looking for because they know that when you're hurting, you want Superman to fly in and take care of it in one foul hit. And they'll go, yes, I can do that for you, right? Um, but it often comes at a cost financially, chemically. Um, and what a marketer wants is a repeat sale. They don't want you to, they'll promise the connection of power. They'll give you a taste, but as the years go on, dollars are leaving your pocket. All these repeat sales, you end up blaming yourself. And I've got a real heart for people seeking healing because they're very vulnerable. And I was one of those people that, you know, I could have ended up in a very different place. um, had I not realized that the difference between a marketer and a healer. Now, what a healer will do is realize they're human. Their energy is not enough for two people. They're not Superman. But what they do have is a connection to something super powerful. Okay. And they've spent, many years mastering that connection. So when they speak to somebody, they can connect them into that power in far less time. And then they've got that connection and they're going to have it for the rest of their life. And so I don't see myself as, say, a breathwork coach. I see myself as someone who introduces you to the new love of your life
I
because
love
your
it.
breath is going to be there whenever you want it. In the middle of the night, in the morning, as you go to sleep, in the middle of the day. Um, and this is, you literally can start a relationship with your breath because this thing is always going to be there. But yeah, most people don't know the power inside of them, and there's a whole economy based on you not knowing your own sovereign power.
And I love that. And that's a great segue to please. We've talked about all this stuff, but we're talking about breath, but we really haven't focused on that. So what is it? How do you work this? How do you go out there to your people and say, this is how you're going to get better sleep?
Sure. Okay.
I know
Well,
breath work. So please,
well,
yeah, you just did it.
and people often sigh, and they don't even know it, but that's them regulating their nervous system. And if you saw someone going, they're about to freak out, right? So just like breath can be a symptom of the problem, breath can be a solution to the problem. You know, um, People soon discover that it's not a set of lungs they own, it's a medicine cabinet with a lot of different shelves. You breathe a certain way for a certain duration, you elicit a certain chemical response in your own body. Now, when it comes to my journey, I withdrew from public life about 2 years ago when I got an email from a very high ranking army officer in the Australian Army. I'd just done a workshop on an army base, a couple of hundred higher ranked officials were there, and this guy didn't attend, but he said the next day I had all my staff coming up to me saying, best workshop ever, and that was the first good night's sleep we had in 5 years. And this Lieutenant Colonel he was, he said he thought it was awesome, and I'm like, no, that's actually terrible. Your personnel haven't been sleeping in 5 years. You know the impact of 5 years of poor sleep, and how easy was it to fix that, right? How easy was it? One session fixed. But then what he said next withdrew me from public life, and he says it was great when you're there, but what have you got when you're not there? And I'm like, good point. I am not permanent. Okay. I'm powerful and positive, but I'm not permanent. And permanency, if you're a healer, that's the key because there's lots of powerful and positive stuff out there and it's great while that person's around and then when they leave, nothing changes. But if you really want to, if you're really about healing people, you've got to connect them to this thing that very day, that the next week, the next year, the next decade. And so I thought if I'm going to reach the numbers I want to reach, I can only reach so many people just by talking on my own. I've got to create a scalable, accessible platform. So understanding that I'm not the powerful one in the equation, your breath is. How do I regularly introduce you to your breath easily and effortlessly? Because that's the key. Everyone's got already a full plate. So how do we easily and effortlessly create a lifestyle change? Because it's your lifestyle that's got you into this. One or two hacks ain't going to change anything. That'll probably just fall away in maybe a week if you're disciplined, right? But if you can make an easy and effortless change, then all of a sudden, that felt good. I'll have more, please. That felt good. I'll have more, please. You know what? I am so in love with my breath right now. I'm going to snuggle up with that instead of, staying up another few hours. So that's when breathwork in bed was born. So breathwork in bed, anyone who's listening can put those 3 words into your app store and it'll ask you two very critical questions, Lorianne. It'll ask you, when do you ideally want to sleep? And when do you ideally want to wake up? That's quite a game changer. So once you tell it that, you can forget about it. I don't want people on tech more than they need to be. A lot of apps want you to keep, interacting and all that. But when the time comes for you to sleep, you'll get this notification, easy and effortless. Tap it, press play. It'll tell you to breathe a certain way. And it's
Wow.
important to have that external focus. It really is. Because breathing is conscious and unconscious. If I just try and breathe on my own, I kind of lose track. But if I stay focused on that breathe in, breathe out, that's when it becomes a medicinal duration, of breath. And it improves the quality of your sleep like you wouldn't believe. My business partner, he was an insomniac for 38 years. 38 years. And he just thought it was normal. Tough dude. But then when I prescribed him breath, he changed everything. And he's like, this has to get out there. Um, because, like I said, this isn't thoughts controlling thoughts. This is your breath, a chemical override. So there's going to sleep breath work, but then there's breath work to get you out of bed. So breath work in bed is not just going to sleep, it's waking up in the morning. And breath, like we often wake up feeling heavy like lead. Breath turns that lead into gold. You know,
Wow.
5, 10 minutes of doing breathing, body movements, unblocking all that stuck energy. Your feet are hitting the floor in a very different way. And I can't do what you do, but you're the best version of us comes out after we've gone to sleep with peace and woken up with power. If we can win the first 10 minutes of the day, we've won the day. And if we can make that easy and effortless, like just tap, tap, press play, then all of a sudden, it's like everything in your life just magically gets better.
I love it. I really didn't realize that because I know that we do a lot of people talking about, the before you go to bed. I tend to sometimes at work, I have a very uh I breathe very shallow and then I get tummy knots because I do struggle with anxiety and I don't even know what I'm anxious about. Seriously, I guess maybe sometimes if I look at it, maybe my lifestyle. Um, but at work, I love my work. So there's certain times that people can become anxious and they don't even know why they're
Yeah.
anxious. But I've heard that breathing can help. But the one thing that you just said that's really interesting is in the morning, that is gold. I like that. I
Oh, yeah.
definitely would like that. Definitely, I need to work more on my evening and definitely in the morning.
Well,
And I
and
think that
people
that
know
would
that.
probably fix the daytime.
Well, people know that, but the thing is, you've got to, because people are already busy enough, right? So you've got to make this
Yeah,
stuff easy and effortless. So that's why I
yeah,
made this easy
yeah.
and effortless thing that just falls out of your phones for you to get access to that power. And that's what I mean. I call myself a master. That's what a master will do. He'll give you access to that power easy and
Yeah.
effortlessly. Yeah, and it's a but well, you said something before as well. Um, he'll have to come back to me, but you said something super cool before as well.
I was saying I have shallow breathing at work.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So one affects
Yeah,
the other. When you shallow
definitely.
breathe, you're telling your body you're in fight or flight.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you breathe deeply
And
through your
yet I have no
nostrils,
reason to. I love my work. I love everything I do. But yet I will be doing that. And and I'm sitting there going, have you breathed normally in the last hour? No. Like,
can I
and,
can
and
I offer
it's not
something?
like that. It's not like that, but it feels like it was like that, like just have I breathe normally, like, and my tummy gets all in knots because I know my breathing is not good and my shoulders get all tensed up.
Lorianne, are you
And
sitting down when you're doing this?
yeah,
Okay, well that's probably your thing. If you're on a standing desk and even if you
yeah,
had like a treadmill underneath you, because you're a high stimuli gal, when you don't
yeah,
get enough stimuli, there's a part of you going, we're not satisfied here. Because what you have to understand, Lorianne, is your body contains mass, right? So it's stuck at,
yeah,
you know, in Australia right now it's 7:49 in the morning, okay? But our minds don't contain any mass. So that's an important thing to know. So they're not stuck in this moment. They're not stuck at 7:49. Now, a lot of people like yourself, they're very high stimuli. And if they're not getting enough stimuli from this moment, your mind goes, well, there's nothing keeping me here. I'm going to go somewhere else. Now, you said something earlier about, why can there be 10 good things, one bad thing, and it pulls everyone down? Okay.
Yeah,
Why can we have 100 good events in the day, one bad event, and we remember the bad event?
right?
Let me offer you something. Let me offer you something. Okay. I put it to you in a world that's understimulating, that the negative event is remembered because it's the highest stimuli.
I get
And all our
that.
mind wants is stimuli. It doesn't care where it gets it from.
Hmm.
And so a physical discipline where you work your body, you breathe, you move, you stretch, whatever, that anchors your mind that contains no mass in your body. And it usually anchors in there for between, 24 to 36 hours. Okay. So my physical discipline isn't there to, get a better looking butt. I do it because if I don't give my mind the stimuli it needs, it'll go, nothing keeping me here. And all of a sudden, I've got all these negative shit in my head because the negative stuff is the highest stimuli, and all this mind of mine wants is stimuli. You see how that works?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I put it to you, if you are upright, breathing properly, even on a treadmill, your stimuli would be going, oh, I'm getting nourished. I've got everything I want. You know what? I'm going to work with you now.
Interesting. Interesting. I'm gonna have to get a hold of my boss and say, hey, I need a treadmill. I need a step up thing.
Well,
I'm kidding.
or
He's
alternatively,
actually adorable. He probably would do it for me too.
well, that and it's not a bad request considering your productivity will go up, up, up. Okay, because think about that nervous energy, because your
Yeah.
mind, it's got let's just call it 100 points of processing power. Okay, and everyone processing power is different. And I put it to you and put it to the people listening to this podcast. Your stimuli need, your processing power is probably a bit higher than the average. Okay, so you can be doing something, but your mind can be elsewhere.
Yes.
And when your mind is disconnected from your body, that's where all the negative spectrum of emotions start happening.
Which some people call overthinking too, because you can overthink those negatives, which are
Well,
not
if you're not
healthy
in the
for you.
moment, your mind
Yeah.
will look for stimuli. So it'll overthink,
Yeah.
it'll stress, it'll do whatever.
Wow.
So
Um,
I noticed, yeah, in Afghanistan, there was times I was completely terrified. Other times I was really
okay.
courageous. And I noticed the times I was terrified, the negative spectrum of emotions was when my mind was ahead of me thinking of something that had to happen. But when I was actually in the moment, I was everything I needed to be.
Wow.
So, so
That's
this is
amazing.
where if you understand, you don't actually have a choice in the matter. If you don't choose to anchor your mind into your body with some form of physical discipline, your mind will go, nothing keeping me here, boom, and it'll
Yeah.
go through all the negative stuff. So that's why a physical discipline doesn't just drop cortisol, it makes you a whole lot more productive because I put it to you and everyone listening, when you're 100% in this moment, there's not a goddamn thing you can't do.
I love it. I love it. And so you do need to let me know, and my listeners, where to find your app.
Oh,
I
that's
know you
very
you
easy.
said it earlier, but I always do it at the end because that's when people actually really
Okay,
will
well,
take the final notes.
I would, if we're not restricted on time, I would like 5 minutes just to give you an experience of breath, if that's okay, and your listeners,
Love
because we've
to.
we've we've blah blah blahed, and I don't
I
like
know,
talking about
right?
stuff without experiencing it. Okay.
Let's do it.
All right, this is really simple. And you've been breathing your whole life, as your listeners have too. So this is the oldest habit we have. Okay, so breath work isn't hard, but because we've been doing it a certain way, we have a certain association attached to it, right? So I have to ask three simple questions before I show you. I'm going to show you how to completely relax your body in three breaths. Okay, sounds too good to be true, right?
Right?
But these are three proper breaths. And so I'm gonna take a little bit of time to show you how to breathe correctly, and that's going to be the access to the goal. So yes, I've got an app that you can use, and you can use literally tonight to turn your bed into a cloud. But if you take this away, you're going to have access to your own power, and that's the goal here, to connect people into their sovereign power. Um, so before we before we start this, I need to ask three questions just to set you up powerfully, okay? Do
Okay,
you give your breath full permission to fully nourish your physical body?
I do.
Awesome. Do you give your breath full permission to completely nourish your mind?
I do.
Do you give your breath full permission to nourish your unconscious mind?
I do.
Awesome. So, all we're going to do is breathe in and out. Great. Now, when we're breathing in, we keep our mouth closed and just breathe through the nose. Okay, so let's just do one more breath. Breathe in and out through the nose. Great. Now, congratulations. You're on the first step to enlightenment, because being aware of your breath connects you back into your body. When you're unaware of your breath, it goes all over the place. Okay. So remember how I said our happiness, strength, mental health, it's a connection thing. It's not necessarily a mental thing. So breath is our connection into our bodies. So now what we're going to do is breathe in, but then breathe in again and again and again and again. You got that? Okay.
I got it.
So breathe in,
Okay.
breathing in, and then breathe in more, 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 more. In, and just let that go. Now, when you breathed in again and again, did you notice some extra space opening up in the top third?
Yeah.
Okay. So for the sake of giving this top third a word, we're going to call it your secondary inhale. Okay. So your primary inhale is where you normally breathe in and out. Your secondary is where you breathe in and breathe in again and again and again. Okay. Now, what I love about my job, Lorianne, is I show people just how wonderful their body is. Now, you didn't know this, and the listeners probably didn't either, but in our two fingers and thumbs are power buttons. Okay. Right. And if you're listening at home, your pointer finger and your index finger, you pinch down onto your thumb like you're trying to pinch something on both hands. And what we're going to do, Lorianne, is we're going to breathe in on the primary inhale, but when it comes to the secondary, we're going to pinch our fingers together as hard as we can and notice how that impacts on our secondary inhale. Cool, cool.
Cool,
So you
cool.
have them relaxed, and then when it gets to the secondary inhale, you pinch them together. All right. So
Okay.
we'll start by blowing it out, 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 and then start breathing in. Hit your turbo buttons. Hold it. Give it a bit of a wriggle. Wriggle your shoulders. Wriggle your shoulders. Wriggle your shoulders. That's it. Wriggle, wriggle, wriggle. Feel that secondary space opening up, and if it feels good, let it out with a sigh. Ah. Okay.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Now, did you notice when you pinched your fingers together, you could sort of have a bit more power in that secondary inhale?
Yeah, that was really interesting.
Okay, so we're just getting into this. We're gonna build on this. All right.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do now is, now that you've discovered you've got your turbo buttons that can boost your secondary inhale, we're gonna, if you look at my nose, see I'm kind of wriggling it. Behind my nose, I have, you and I both have sinuses. Okay.
Yes.
Now, in a former life, I used to be a professional fighter, and my coach always used to say, before you do a combination, snort your nose as rapidly as possible, full inhale of air as fast as you can through your nose, because that sucks the air over your sinuses and straight into your brain. Now, whether that was based in science or not, I don't know, but it worked in combat, and we're going to use it now. And fun fact, when we breathe through our nose, we produce nitric oxide. Okay. It helps with the gas exchange. It helps with mood and brain function. It helps with heart function, lung function. So if someone said, hey, I'm going to sell you a gas that's going to improve your heart, lungs, brain, and mood, would you buy it? Well, we can make it ourselves by breathing through our nose. Okay. So what we're going to do is when we breathe in, we're going to try and breathe in twice as fast and snort our nose and point our nose to the ceiling like we're looking up. Does that make sense?
Okay, I think.
So I'll give you a demonstration. So we're going to blow it out. And then as we breathe in, we're just going to snort our nose as quickly as possible and face the ceiling. Okay. As we hit our turbo buttons. So just let that go. And we're gonna blow it all the way out. We're gonna have our turbo buttons ready, and we're gonna snort the air as rapidly as possible. Cool, cool. So we're gonna pinch our turbo buttons and snort at the same time. You got that?
Okay,
So
got it.
blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out. Out, 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 out. Start breathing in, and then snort and pinch. Open, 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 open the chest, wriggle your chest, feel that chest opening, wriggle your shoulders, feel how good it is to open that chest. And if it feels good, let it out with a sigh. Ah, 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 ah.
That's nice.
So we're not just getting more energy from the oxygen, we're getting more energy because we're an electrical circuit. And that electricity flows through nerves. And those nerves are like hose pipes. Okay, so if you know your garden hose and you pinch your garden hose and there's not much flow coming through the other end, that's how our nerves work. And if we're hunched over, at a desk, or if there's crap in my head, you ever seen someone with the weight of the world on their shoulders?
Yes.
Okay. Well, when we're hunched over, we're pinching off our nerves, pinching off our energy supply. Okay. So this brain has got all these hoses, running through all our body, but often we'll step on the hose by bad posture. So when we breathe open, we actually create the space needed for that energy to flow. So it's not just breath, it's energy. And that's why I don't call this secondary inhale a secondary inhale. I call this the breath of possibility.
I like that.
Okay, so when I've got stuff in my head telling me something that's not possible, crap I don't want in there, I'll naturally hunch over, I've noticed. Okay, so in public, I'll discreetly, hands in my pocket, hold it, wriggle it around, let that energy flow to where it's supposed to go, and then, okay, so
Love
so
it.
if you're listening to this, these little turbo buttons, they're like your medicine pump. Okay. And you've got to train this muscle, train this kind of breath in the quiet time. So when you're out in public or you need this, you can, you know, move
And
that, get
again, for our listeners, it's your index finger and your middle finger against your thumb, pressing against each other. Okay, that's what that is. Because I know that there's some people who'll be listening to this on a podcast and they won't see what you've done. And that's what you do. So you press them together. And that is your, what did you call it?
breath of possibility.
Breath of
Okay.
possibility.
Something feels impossible. And the thing is, you know, it almost acts like a circuit breaker in the way that uh there's crap in your head, you pinch your fingers and breathe, and then that stops what's called rumination. When you focus on a negative thought, 2% goes to 4, 4 goes to 8, 16, 32, and before you know, your whole head's taken over. So they've shown that
Yes,
you can break those intrusive thoughts if you catch them in the first 2 minutes by, some form of distraction. To me, I use breath because it's a chemical thing. It's not yeah.
I love it. I really
So
appreciate that.
well, that's the breath of possibility. Now that moves into the breath of peace. So I want to show you the breath of peace. Now, this one, you do need to be seated. You can't be driving near water. You've got to be in a safe place, okay? Because this one will often relax people to the point where they drift a little bit, okay? So it's going to be exactly as we've done it, where we breathe in, open, okay, wriggle it, but then we hold our breath, okay? We hold our breath and we wriggle it from our top third through the middle into our belly. Now I'm just going to stand up and show you here. I'm going to be
Okay.
punching forward. My belly's going to be out and my hands are going to be on my belly. So it's going to be
Okay.
down low. Now the reason why this is so powerful is that the bottom third of your lungs is where you have your best gas exchange. That's the most vascular part your lung has. So when you breathe down low, you get a really good gas exchange. So when I'm working with professional athletes, I'll show them how to use the breath of peace to oxygenate their system and dissolve the lactic acid, so they can increase their recovery time. Okay, but we're going to use it in a way to create a state of peace. So is everyone ready to do some peaceful breathing?
We're ready.
Okay.
Let's
So
go.
I'll be with you the whole time. I'll coach you through it, and we're gonna go through this 3 times.
Okay.
Okay. Actually, yeah, we'll push it down low, hold it, and then let it out with a. It's like we're making it, and we're trying to extend the length of the exhale. So I'll coach you through it. We'll push it down low, let it out slow. A bit like a cat going. All right. So we squeeze our bellies and we restrict it coming out of our mouths.
Okay.
Cool, cool. All right. So with your power buttons ready, let's get ready to breathe in, but let's first blow out, blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out. Mouth closed, breathing in through the nose. Hit those power buttons, snort, face the ceiling. Open, 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 open. Feel how open it is. Move your shoulders, move your shoulders. Feel like your chest is opening like a flower in the sun. Now holding your breath, holding your breath. Let your head collapse forward. Let your head collapse forward. Hands on your belly, hands on your belly. And feel that air down low. Push it down low below your belly button and squeeze it down low, and let it out with a hiss for as long as possible. Long as possible. And just let the tension leave your body. Very good. We're going to do that 2 more times. Blowing it out, blow it out, shake it out, blow it out, shake it out. Each time you breathe in, you'll be able to breathe in more because you're opening up. Start breathing in, snort that air, hit those power buttons. Open, open, open. Feel your chest opening. Wriggle, wriggle, wriggle. Your chest is opening like a flower in the sun, feeling the warmth. And then holding your breath, let your head gently fall forward, head gently going towards your knees, hands on your belly, hands on your belly. Feel your belly button pushing out, feel like a balloon down low. Give it a bit of a squeeze and let it out with a hiss for as long as possible. And as that air is leaving your body, just let that tension leave your body, your shoulders, the top of your head, your face, your arms. Everything's relaxed. Your spine is relaxed and loose. And this last one, we're going to do it super slow, but super intentional. Blowing it out, shake it out, blowing it out, shake it out. Know that good things are coming. Your body's being about to be nourished. Your mind's about to be nourished. Your unconscious mind is about to be nourished. So let's breathe like we're nourishing every part of us. Deep breath in, big squeeze, big open, snort the air. Open, 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 open like you've never opened before. Feel that openness and how good it is to have that big open chest. Now holding your breath, collapse your head forward, gently forward, hands on your belly. Let your head fall towards your knees, hands on your belly. Push it down really low, lower than it's ever been. Then give it a squeeze and let it out with a hiss for as long as possible. Relax, let all the tension fall out of your shoulders, your spine, your neck. Feel that as you exhale, your whole body is deflating. And with that, all the tension is leaving your physical body. And I just encourage you just close your eyes for a second, Lorianne, close your eyes and just sit back in your chair. Sit back in your chair and allow that chair to take your weight. Okay, feel the muscles touching the chair and allow those muscles to feel supported by the chair. And I invite you now just to breathe through your nose into those muscles touching the chair. Feel how wonderful it is to feel supported. That chair was built to hold you. It will hold you. So often in our tension, we don't allow ourselves to feel held and supported. It's like our own tension is a way of giving ourselves, that support. But that's not how it works. It's only when we get rid of that tension and allow ourselves to feel supported that we truly feel supported. I invite you to just take a few sort of deep breaths, come back into the moment, and I invite you to breathe into those places and
Nice.
checking in. How are you feeling?
Much more relaxed. I still do have a muscle tension over here, but that's been for about a week. But if I keep doing this, that probably will go away.
Well, that was literally only 3 breaths. Imagine
That's
if
awesome.
we had an hour together of breathing. We
Yeah,
we we go beyond spoken words. That 3 breath, it gives people access to something that I used to have to drink a lot of alcohol for, you know.
yeah. That's awesome. That's really amazing. Thank you for sharing that and going through this so that I even know how to do that
And I
now.
will
So
include a
that's
little
really
link.
awesome.
I'll give you a little link that you can show people how to do the breath of peace and possibility on their own. Um,
Beautiful.
but like I said, if you want to create an easy lifestyle out of this, if you pick up your phone, doesn't matter if it's a smartphone or an Android, you look up 3 words, breath work, 1 word, in bed. Like breakfast in bed, but breath work in bed. It'll ask you, it'll get to know you, but then it'll ask you 2 questions. When do you want to sleep? When do you want to wake up? And then it just falls out of your phone with ease and grace. And if you want one habit to improve everything in your life, breath work to improve your sleep would be the thing to do it.
I really appreciate that. And I really do recommend anyone who is struggling with bulimia, midlife bulimia is our main point, but anyone, eating disorders in general, um, sleep will help in recovery. If you're going towards recovery, I absolutely am 100% on that. So really appreciate you being here, Tim. Thank you so much and for your time. And yeah, this is great. I'm so excited. I got to speak to someone from right across the world and we got to do some time sharing with this. So thank you again for being here. Thank you very
My
much.
absolute pleasure, Lorianne.
All right. You have a great, well, I guess for you, I'm going for night,
Yeah,
you're going for day. So
yeah.
have a great
These aren't
day.
studio lights. This is the sun coming up.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
I love it. Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit me at bleepbulimia.com